Okay.
And we're live now.
Okay. The meeting is called to order. Are there any additions to the agenda, Dave? Okay.
I have none.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda as written?
Yeah, I'll motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Rita. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Craig. All in favor, say aye. Oh, do we have to do roll call on that?
Probably.
Okay. Craig,
Roll call. Aye.
Rita,
Aye.
Steve?
I lost him on my computer. I don't know if he's connected.
I lost him too. I see now. I have two Patricks, but I don't have a Steve.
Patrick, are you there to call him back?
I am here, but I don't have his number. Let me check.
Email.
Well,
Likely reconnect. I bet he just, you know how the hang up is right next to the mute.
yeah. Okay, so I also am in favor of approving the agenda. The motion carried. Let's move on to the review of the minutes. Did anyone find anything in the minutes that needed correction?
No.
I did not either. Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda? Or excuse me, the minutes?
Yep, I'll go ahead and motion to approve those.
Thank you, Rita. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Craig. Any other discussion? All in favor? Rita?
Aye.
Craig?
Aye.
Sally? Aye. And Steve, we're still waiting for him to rejoin us. Okay, the golf report. Should we go ahead with that, Dave?
Well, yeah, I just texted Paul, but it's likely he might not make it. I can give a brief recap on the season up there. You know, we had a very strong showing. Revenue, I think we looked at in October, was pretty much complete, and it was up about 25% over last year's 2019 performance, which in and of itself was impressive because in 2019 we were up 25% over 2018. So in just the short 2 years of under Paul Jones's superintendentship, we've really increased the bottom line up there nearly 50%. It's very exciting news, I think, from a revenue perspective. Now, this is, of course, still in a deficit position. You know, the operation is far from being profitable in terms of our expenses are tracking at, you know, 170, 180,000. Revenue finished at about 151,000. So, you know, we've definitely cut the loss up there down, you know, $25,000, $30,000 of expected loss, you know, which is, I think, you know, impressive considering I think close to $70-some thousand loss when Paul first took over in 2019. So, you know, we're chipping away. The course conditions, as we all had been talking about all season, were really excellent, and usership was up. You know, we really got lucky with Paul getting the crew together and winterizing the course that beginning of October, you know, right before the abrupt change of seasons. So he was able to get all of his, you know, fall duties done and deep tine irrigation or deep tine aeration, and then the blowout of the water system, and really put the course to bed in a really good way just before the snows of that, you know, second week of October. And unlike a lot of courses in the region, Paul shared with me the sort of shock and surprise throughout the region as that real early snowfall in the, you know, middle of October caught a lot of courses unprepared. And you know, we'll see what the spring conditions bring, but we feel really good that Paul was ahead of the game, or just on time, and took care of everything up there before things turned. So yeah, we're put to bed. Clubhouse has been winterized. You know, takeaways from the COVID season were a lot of positives in the play and the people being satisfied with conditions. But also I sensed Paul was really satisfied with the staff and the clubhouse operations, and the, you know, limiting access to the clubhouse, I think, was actually made things easier. Certainly the window service was effective. The lack of cash transactions, I know he really enjoyed with the, you're not counting pennies at the end of the night. And it really didn't put anyone off, and, no one didn't play because they couldn't pay with cash. So that was a nice little bonus to the year. But now we are looking at carts as we were last year. Again, staff and Paul and Mike Roth and I have all been in discussions over the last month about carts and the need to update the fleet a little and at least bring it up to the minimum 18 carts that are necessary to run the 9-hole operation up there. Right now, it sounds like we're down to about, 15, 14 carts that are actually usable. It's finally some of those 20-year-old or more gas carts are just no longer worth fixing. And so we were trying to come up with some strategies and a budget number to put towards some new carts or some new used carts. And just recently I've kind of settled on about a $10,000 to $20,000 price range, sort of a comfort level for purchasing carts. And Paul's been tasked with getting quotes and getting prices on what carts cost, new carts versus 5-year-old carts. What we're seeing is it's really not a lot of flexibility in pricing. It seems like new carts are coming in at around $4,000 a piece, give or take. And that includes warranties and all sorts of bells and whistles. And like a 5-year-old cart, Superior National's got some 2016 carts available, but they're $3,500. No warranty, 5-6 years old. It just, on paper, we certainly like the look of new carts at that $4,000 amount, but we need 18 carts. We're in no way in a position to be able to spend $80,000 to $100,000 to update the fleet all at once. And so we're trying to come up with a strategy that phases in replacement carts as our oldest, most needy carts are no longer worth fixing. And so I don't know the outcome of all this. It seems like we have time again on our side, and the fact that we made really good money off of our fleet of old carts is not really causing us this great need to buy new carts. It's the priorities up there are certainly in the course and the conditions. And so maintenance equipment, mowers and blowers and sprayers to us feel like a bigger priority than new carts, because, we're not a private country club. We don't need the fancy new carts with GPS and, chargers, USB chargers, and all these bells and whistles that some members are expecting or accustomed to at other private clubs. And so finding that middle ground on carts is what we're after right now. Is there a 5-year-old cart that, costs less than $3,500? That's sort of where we're at.
Are you looking for gas, Dave?
Yep. Gas for sure. Our fleet up here now has 8 electric carts, and those are all approaching the end of their life, and especially battery life. And replacement battery costs are pretty significant per cart. It's up to $2,000 for batteries.
No, really?
Yeah.
Down here, they're $800 for new batteries.
Yeah.
2,000 would almost get you lithium batteries.
Yeah.
Lithium batteries are 2,800. Regular are 800.
Hi, Steve.
Yeah, Steve, we got you. I see audio, not video, but we hear you. We're just talking about golf and carts, and there you are. There you are. Yep.
I do have one question for the golf course. Are we as board members, will we see a report financially of what was brought in and what the expenses were and that kind of thing? I haven't seen anything on the golf course at all.
We sure can. Typically, it's not. It's kind of macro. In the past we've just gotten this, like a verbal report of here's the finishing numbers. Here's especially from the revenue side, but I can certainly start something in writing.
I know Steve had mentioned that a few times about a report, so I just was curious if we get a year-end report at all.
You bet. Yeah, we can certainly get the numbers for, as I say, revenue. I'm pretty certain. I just got my September from downtown, and they finished at 149,373 as
okay.
of the end of September on the revenue side. 149,373. We picked up a couple thousand that first week of October though. So when I looked last, it was at 151.
Okay.
But yeah, we can certainly get that papered up for a December meeting. Expenses were tracking pretty on par of what was budgeted. We were at 162,573 as of the end of September. And relative to last year at this time, expenses were at 132. However, the big jump this year was the 22,000 that we spent on those two mowers. And I believe that's a part of the capital equipment outlay.
Mhm.
And that's, you know, in our world of capital, it'll come out at the end. It'll become amortized.
Okay.
And there's Paul Jones.
Hi, Paul.
Hey, Paul.
You're
Are
on
you
mute.
outside?
Paul, we
Can't
see you, but you got to unmute.
Are you talking about me?
Nope.
No, Paul.
Paul. You're on mute, Paul. Oops.
Well, I'm glad Paul's here. I'm hoping he can get some audio going because I was going to then try to perhaps move up the.
Yes,
There you are. Yep, we got you, Paul.
Okay.
Hey, thanks for joining us. I just gave the recap, sort of what we've already been talking about as far as the good news on revenue up there, coming in at about 150.
Yeah.
Expenses are tracking on budget. We'll put together like something in writing for December for the board as far as the financials.
Yeah.
I gave a little review on where we're at with carts and sort of bang for the buck and that $10,000 to $20,000 budget we're looking at for, 3 to 4 to 5 new carts. You're out there beating the streets for the best value.
Yeah.
But now, if it's okay, we've got this disc golf proposal. It's under, old business, but I think it's appropriate to maybe talk about it now with Paul's expertise.
Before we go on to that, can I just add one thing for the December thing?
You best, Steve.
And that is, it would be helpful not only to have a review of last year, but also a budget for next year and projections as to what we hope to accomplish that's new and different or the same.
Sure. Yeah, the 2021 budget's nearly set. Council took a look at that in August, September. I believe they'll certify the levy soon, and then we can certainly present the 2021 budget.
Good.
Okay. Let's go back to Paul and have him tell us what his thoughts on the disc golf.
Okay. Well, looking at the disc golf thing, basically my concerns with what's going on with that is the drawings that I'm looking at, they just don't, they really aren't going to work for me. They're just way, originally we had Adam had kind of thrown a area square, and about a little less than half of that, I think my recall was, could not be used because it's just too close to the course and the tees and the greens, and so this new drawing basically is kind of, it's even worse in a way because the lines are coming right in close to they're basically shadowing the course, and so that's not going to work. We can't have basically you can't be getting that thing in that tight to the course.
Are you talking about the drawing with the brown lines on it? Or the reddish color lines on it?
Yeah, the reddish color lines, I think they were.
Okay, and that comes right up against the course, is what you're saying?
Oh yeah, if you look at the lines, like
Mhm.
some of those lines are so close. I mean, if you look at the size of the green that it comes close to, I mean, it's
There. Okay.
it's within, it's like as close as half the size of the green. That's really close.
Okay.
I mean, it can't be anywhere even close to that. So, my concern with the property, I haven't been able to, we really got rushed there at the end of the season with the way the weather turned. And then I mean, I haven't been able to scope that property out yet. I think I was in the office with Mike, and he had pulled out a land map. We looked at the property there, and with the proper, with the original box there, and where I was saying that the land that really wouldn't bother the course. There's just, I don't know if there's going to be enough of it, and I don't know if it looks like pretty swampy. There's streams and swampy grounds in there. I just don't know how much of that's going to be viable.
As I look at the map or the drawing, the one on the bottom of the page, it appears that they're a long ways away from the northern boundary of the property and much closer to the golf course. And you might want to talk to him about seeing what he can do about using the land farther north.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and the other thing is I think that there's a highway, and the Gunflint Trail goes along there. I mean, I don't know how much sense that makes, having it along that line either. Just from a safety standpoint and all that. So it's just kind of squeezing in the property. There's basically the drawing I'm looking at there, I wouldn't be agreeable to.
And you haven't walked it yet with him, Paul?
Pardon me?
You haven't walked it with Adam to see if there's some other way to route those or take off, maybe not have so many holes, or I don't know. I'm just looking at options. He's put a lot of thought and work into it. I'm curious if there's any options.
Well, no, I had, like I say, I didn't have any opportunity to get on the property. We were pretty much rushed out of there with getting things shut down, and then the snow came,
Sure.
So we were lucky to get our stuff done. And then the last I heard, basically was the note that he had been out and kind of checking out the property. But yeah, the lines, I mean, they're just too close to the golf course.
I guess my suggestion would be to still have you two meet and see what can be, if there's any alternatives, less baskets or whatever they call those.
Yeah, it might be more of a minimal course out there. I don't know, but there's just.
And Paul, also, I think it still would be a good thing for you and him to walk the property together to see whether or not there's any way to move it further away from the golf course.
Okay. Also, I might be up. Line that up. Something, I don't know. Can you hear me?
Or Paul, can you repeat that? It didn't come through.
Yeah, I heard that.
You did? I didn't.
I said,
okay.
I was saying that I'm maybe coming up there next week, and so then maybe I could line something up there.
Yeah, I think it would be nice if something could be worked out, but I completely agree with you that it is too close to the greens, and to try to be doing both things where they're going to interfere with each other is not a good place to start. So whether it's reducing the number of baskets, as Rita said, or just using some of the other unused ground if it's available, that looks like a better option.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what we probably need to determine, is what actually is usable there, and then go from there. I was, talking with one of my employees. He was saying, well, why doesn't he just look at the property from the old Ski Hill property? That's city property, and there's like about 140 acres out there.
Dave, what would your response be to that?
Yeah, I can speak to that. That's the Sawtooth Bluffs project that was being actively planned a couple of years ago, when there was some legacy money of it. This idea that there was a regionally significant park up there, and that the city and the county were working together on regional significance and funding was, front burner 2 years ago. City county had a working group I was a member of. They developed a master plan for Sawtooth Bluffs. It included disc golf, as well as, you know, dog parks and bike trails and remote camping. And so it's, yeah, ideal land. Ownership is public, but the appetite for development, I don't feel is there, especially with the county. The city also, it's not a priority. There wasn't a follow-up in terms of a joint powers group formed to administer that land and seek grant funding. And of course, the biggest with that piece of land is access. Is there's no road, there's no parking, there's, you know, you just can't access it without municipal infrastructure that the city would have to make a priority of, and it's simply not on the list. So it's great land. It's been visioned for these types of uses. I know the dog group even right now is, you know, actively seeking a dog park development. And so there's, you know, discussions with city council on dog parks, and maybe disc golf gets included in that. And there's some momentum behind the two groups, and, you know, access is still going to become an issue. Road and parking is still the big ticket item that's missing from that land.
I have one other thought to share with Paul, and that is, if I understand it correctly, the problem with being too close to the greens is that balls would come flying over and hit disc golfers. I'm assuming there's not a real problem with disc golf discs ending up on the green with all the trees that will be between holes in the green.
Yeah. I mean, it's not gonna be anywhere near where that would even be considered. That just can't happen. You know, it's just not going to work that way.
Yeah, you know, Paul and I have talked, and it seems like, you know, Adam's definitely a go-getter and out there wanting to make this happen, and we applaud that. We got to, you know, I think the three of us have to come together in a meeting and maybe a walkabout, but the idea that, you know, this is the usable space we're, you know, allowing, and it's up here, you know, set up some kind of a buffer, be it 500 or 1,000 feet from the course, and then draw that line on what's left is then what we would evaluate, or what Adam could evaluate. And it might very well be just unfeasible. I mean, we have kind of gone into this project thinking it's a good idea, but maybe not that the location is not right.
Yeah, let's do that.
500 feet is divided by 3 is about 165 yards. If you're 165 yards away from a green, you ought to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll follow up with Adam, and, you know, I think he's patient, though. He also mentions, you know, this is the off season and these are when we plant things, and this hasn't been a priority in the past. So when we do some capital prioritization in the next few months, we'll continue to be able to evaluate this project along with the rest of them.
So if I understand it correctly, the next step is for Paul and Adam, and maybe you, Dave, to go out and actually look at the place and establish some ground rules for Adam to do his planning within.
That's right. I'll follow up with Adam.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, well, yeah, I
Thank
gotta
you,
check
Paul.
out. I'm out in the middle of a course here, and it's getting dark.
Are you golfing or working?
Oh no, I'm just working for doing the deep time job for a course out here. Masaba.
All right, Paul. Thanks for calling in.
Thank
Okay,
you.
take care. See you later.
Okay, let's go back up to the city council report. Craig, is there anything that you need to report on that pertains to the park board from the city
And
council?
congratulations on your reelection.
Oh, thank you.
Greg appears twice on my front page.
He appears twice on mine as well. Is it
Patrick,
possible?
you want to get one of Craig? Oh,
I'm
wonderful.
gonna try removing one instance of Craig. It might remove both, but either way, just rejoin Craig if you get booted.
Okay.
Perfect. Now we shouldn't get the feedback probably since we don't have 2.
Craig, can you unmute yourself and
Okay, yeah, it just popped up. I couldn't get it to open up. No, I got it.
Okay.
As far as the park goes, we don't have anything. We've been working on a new zoning ordinance. That's taken up quite some time. We've got through that now. So if anybody has the ambition to follow along and look, if you got suggestions or questions, feel free to let us know at the city council. Any feedback we have in the zoning would be nice. Otherwise, anything about the park, I don't have anything to relate to you at this time.
Okay, well, that works out fine because I think we'll have plenty of discussion over the monthly rates and policies. So, Dave, do you want to kind of take that over in terms of leading us through the process?
You bet, Sally. Thank you. So material went out last week, memo, maps. Hopefully everyone had a chance to review things to, I think, hopefully give you a deeper understanding of how monthly works down here. I know several members are newer to the board, and that's certainly a whole different operation, the monthly seasonal versus nightly weekly. And historically we've had these sort of two different neighborhoods. There's the east side around the harbor and the office area is principally the monthly sites. And then the west side out by the ball field and out by the lake, the big lake, are the overnight sites. And it dates back to the development of the park in the 1950s, and when trailer park was the sort of the moniker down here. And we weren't into overnight camping. We were into seasonal summer guests, summer residents in these new fangled trailers. And I think just the time and the history of monthly sites has proven itself to set us up for the current situation. And that is, monthly rates are greatly reduced from nightly rates. This, I think, was a bigger deal in the 70s and 80s when, again, the nightly traffic was not as robust. The demand was not as robust. It was a very short season for nightly. The 4th of July to Labor Day, for example, had historically been when we made our money on nightlies. But then the idea that we were making money on monthlies, May to October, was very sound and very solid when it came to our annual budgets. This fleet of monthly seasonal folks were our bread and butter, money that we could count on every year, because we knew these 100 or so sites were being, fully used and occupied by monthly folks. But it's evolved. Nightly has become much more lucrative. We've seen this over the last 10 years as nightly rates have increased to, $40, $50 per night for full hookup sites. We see that over time. We see that over a month, and it's, $1,200, $1,500 a month on a nightly site, versus $700 or $800 on a monthly site. And so this discrepancy we've been seeing for years, we in 2016 really took a look at things in terms of real estate and view and water view. And we're out on the grounds and looking at sites and determining, prime monthly sites versus standard monthly sites. And so just in the last 5 years, we've taken a steeper approach to sites with a view. They now cost more, not that much more, and nowhere near what a nightly with a view is returning. So, that's the history on monthly rates. I don't know if anyone has questions along the way, just feel free to ask.
Dave, I do have a question regarding the sites with a view. You mentioned that there's just one site left in the front row next year that will be
Two sites.
Two sites?
Yeah.
Has there been any consideration to extend that to the row right behind them should any of those people decide not to continue being seasonal renters?
Nothing formal, Sally. Nothing's been passed or approved that would sunset those sites. Like that front row was the case. This was before my time. I think around 20 years ago or so, the park board was savvy on that front row and said, "Oh, monthlies, you can keep coming back at this great rate, but when you leave, that there's no more monthly down in the very front row."
Well, that has been since I've been on the park board.
It's been, like I say, at least 20 years.
Started, I think. I don't know if it's been that long, has it?
Yeah,
Is that-
because it's been before I've been here 15 years.
Okay.
And when I first started, it was kind of a newer policy. And there was, of those 15 sites down there, there was only a couple that were nightly. It was just the opposite of now. In 15 years' time, that policy that said, once you're done, has now turned all but 2 of those into nightly sites. We haven't applied that policy elsewhere. We've talked about it to that next tier up, to the prime sites above the marina in particular, and on the road here across from the pavilion. I thought in 2016, when discussions were focused on pricing and views, that was an option to sunset those sites out of monthly as well. The other option was to price them more according to nightly rates, to not so much displace the monthlies, but to give them the option to pay more. You want that view, you're going to pay what a nightly pays. I think that's always been the quest in this game of the view. And it could certainly be a way forward in opening those sites up for nightly gains.
So are those,
Is there a problem when you mix monthly and nightly groups of people in terms of, does it change the neighborhood, so to speak?
It does. It does change the dynamic. You can imagine the demographics alone. Monthlies are the senior set. I don't want to generalize, but they go to bed early. They don't stay up late and party on the weekends like a nightly might tend to do. So that has been a little bit of a concern, or it's been talked about throughout the years. But again, we've got it going on in the front row now with the nightlies coming in and having a good time, and the monthly lives right above them, and nobody's put out. And it's not, I think it's more anecdotal, and it's more of a fear than an actual reality. But that said, in other RV park settings, it's very rare to see the intermixing of the 2 operations. Like, we are truly unique in being municipal, offering monthly sites and offering nightly sites. In our research of like pricing, in particular, price comparisons, we can't find any other public campground that's doing monthly, is one thing we've always realized. You look at the state parks and the national parks and other city parks, 2 harbors, etc., they don't do monthly.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always that in the industry, there's that kind of 2 different models of business. The trailer park seasonal, that's generally privately owned. The seasonals actually own the lots. And then there's the strictly nightly, overnight, recreation parks. And so we've really got what I would say is a hybrid model of 2 different operations, seasonal park and nightly park. And mixing the neighborhoods is not that big a deal, in my opinion.
Do I take it that you're happy with the hybrid model that we have generally?
Sorry, Steve, what was that?
That you're generally happy with the hybrid model that we've got?
Yeah, it's obviously a success in terms of endearment and revenue.
One other question, and that is lots 1 through 16 that are right next to Cobblestone Beach, where those 2 grandmothered-in properties are. Those are nightly?
That's right.
Are they a higher priced nightly rate than some others?
They are, Steve. They're at the highest because they are so premium. Those nightly rates on the front row are 60 plus with tax. It's like 62 and change was the nightly rate on the front row versus a standard site at, like, let's say $50. I mean, they're like $10 more per night on the rate sheet, and there's no weekly discount on those front row sites. So we know those are the best sites. We know they're full every night, and we haven't given any discount, and we've increased that price because of demand. So much so that 2 weeks down front costs $880 for 2 weeks.
fine for it.
Yeah, and people pay that all summer long. And the site right above it with maybe even a better setup because you're tucked back and you still got a huge view. I'm talking about sites like 30s, like 34, 36, 19 through 25. Those are all outstanding views, a little less traffic, but you know, $800 for the whole month.
Well,
Lots
those are
to
the sites that I was looking at because they appear to be smaller sites.
A higher price tenting site also?
You're both talking, so I don't know what either of you said.
What did you say, Steve?
Oh, I was saying that lots 250 to 279 are tenting sites next to the lake on the east side. Are those a higher price tenting site?
Yep, exactly. We do that same formula on Lakeside Tent. Now those are again just nightly rates, nightly tent rates, but those fetch, I believe, $5 more per night than the standard tent site. So that same formula for Lakeside pricing is in effect for the tent sites as well.
So maybe for December, Dave, could you give us one of these color-coded things showing all of both the nightlies and the monthlies so that we can just stick that aside and have it available to us?
It already is coded, Steve, nightly and monthly. He's split them all up for.
Yeah.
The weeklies are coded, but the nightlies are not coded as to premium and standard and whatever.
Oh,
Well, it is there, Steve. So what the map that was in the packet has, if you look at the key up in the map, you know, legend, it talks about Lakeside electric water sewer, standard electric water sewer, you know, electric water, Lakeside tent, and then tent.
Okay. So what you're telling me is if I read the code correctly, I have the answer to my question.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what I've shaded in terms of the yellow is a standard monthly, the blue is a prime monthly, and the pink is a very premium unavailable monthly.
The grandmother difference.
Yeah. And that's the distinguishing map that isn't available like to the layperson online. When you go to our online map, you don't get to see what sites are monthly and what sites are nightly / weekly. You would if you look at our reservable site map, that is the nightly weekly map, and it's only the, you know, out west things that aren't shaded on this map. That's the way to sort of distinguish our map of what's nightly and what's monthly.
I noticed. Go ahead.
Sally
I
had.
noticed, Dave, that there's a bunch of water and sewer only, or electric and water only lots next to a bunch of lots that are electric, water, and sewer. Is there ever any thought about maybe expanding the sewer access for some of those lots so we can charge more for them?
You bet, Steve. That's always on the horizon. That's a part of our capital plan.
Okay, terrific.
So, Dave, my question was lots 33 through 37. 4 of those 5 lots appear to be quite small, and that's what I was asking in terms of transitioning at some point in time to nightly, because a large trailer perhaps isn't going to fit as well there, at least if the scale is relatively accurate here.
Yeah, and it's not, Sally. I can say it's not. The only substandard size is site 33 on that. So there is a little, you know, vagary to the scale. 33 is a very small lot. We, you know, rated at like 20 feet or less. So it's been a difficult one to place actually on the monthly. It's an example of one of those monthlies that is just tiny, and a little scamp will work on it. And we've had scamps there for the summer. And so we love that lot. But then as soon as you get into 34, I believe that gal just upgraded to like a 28-foot trailer. The folks in 36 this year were living large. I mean, they get much larger because it's like a cul-de-sac, like dead end back there.
Okay.
And so those are actually very prime sites that can fit up to 40 feet.
Pretty
Okay.
big.
Okay.
My question is, what are the thoughts from the board on taking monthly out and just having seasonal and nightlies?
Well, before we get there, I have one other question. You know, at one time we felt that it was good to have let people pay for storage and so on, have the year-round thing. But then when you look at it financially to us, we don't make any money once they leave. So they do pay for 6 months already, I suppose, at a monthly rate.
You know, they could stay a month to 2 months to 3 months to 6 months and then store their RV if they're seasonal for the other 6.
But if they only stay 3 months, do they pay a storage rate or do they pay a monthly rate?
It depends on if they leave, right, Dave?
It depends on the site. It depends on their dates. But so this was another correction we made in 2016 on the prime sites. We didn't, to get $74 in May and September and October was not enough. And so we said, if you're on a prime site, sites in the 30s and in the in the 20s, and you store on site, you need to pay that 12-month rate, that $4,400 rate, irregardless of if you use it from May to October or just June, July, and August. That was a big correction, because a lot of those sites and almost all of our sites, it's the peak season, June, July, August, that people are here for. And we weren't willing to take less for May, September, and October on those sites in the term of a storage rate at 70 some a month. So we said, no, you need to pay the full 12-month deal to store on those prime sites. We didn't have that policy on the standard sites. And that's sort of what Rita's getting at, that has allowed the tradition of coming for June, July, and August, paying 3 months at $750 for $2,200, and then paying the other 9 months at $74, for $600, so that they're getting out of here for $2,800 for the 12-month deal.
Yeah, that's way too late. Renting those sites out and bringing more income in for the city.
Well, especially when we have a list of 280 people for seasonal sites. Those people are willing to pay the year-round fee. Correct? Is that my understanding? So if we just do monthly or 2 months, we're losing money.
Yeah, so when it comes to the waiting list and the new people getting in, we're not calling people that just want to be here for 3 months and store the other 9 months. Like it's the 6 month, 12-month plan people that I mentioned their preferred is the May to October people off the list. We made that change as well in 2016, where we realized the most we can make on these sites is if we rent them May to October. And so those on the list that want the full season May to October are who we call first. And if you just want 2 months, you're not going to get it.
Well, why don't we just have the policy of they pay a seasonal, because it sounds like that's what they already do. They pay a year-round fee, or it's a nightly rental. It kind of sounds like that's already what we're doing.
Yes,
roundabout way.
It is, Rita, but it's the subject to, 2 months here, 3 months there. Some people just come for 2 months. They don't even store on site. It's like everybody's got a different deal because of the history. And there hasn't been that minimum buy-in of 6 months or 12 months. And that would be a kind of a rug pull for the 2-3 monthers that only come June, July, and August. If we suddenly said, no, you gotta pay, $3,600, that's, twice as much as they're used to.
Is that a fair inference, Dave, that most of the people who come for the June, July, and August date are people who are still working, as opposed to the more senior staff?
No, they're snowbirds. No, Steve, they're snowbirds. There's the contractors, the workers are May to October. Like they've been our real value added, use of those sites. When the June, July, August people aren't here yet and they don't store on site, we rent that site to workers and affordable housing people seeking, May, just to get their foot in the door while they're looking for rentals, and September and October. So we make use of those sites that don't store during the off-peak time by selling them to locals and to contractors.
But we can do that with seasonal spots as well.
True. Yeah. When a seasonal spot doesn't place, like I, alluded to, when it's small or back of the lot, and the contractor comes in May that's working on the highway, we sell that all summer, and we were running very full this summer because of that.
Sure. So what would be the difference if we're talking about a general consensus? Not sure, but if we're talking about increasing those monthly rates to generate more income to be in line with seasonal and nightlies, what's the difference of doing that versus just charging them a seasonal? I mean, I guess I don't. It's
all on the individual plan, so that the and we can break down the numbers further, but maybe there's 20 or so people of the seasonals let's say there's 100 seasonals, 20 or so are already doing the May to October deal on the standard lots at the 3,600 price or 3,800. That's about 20 of standard lots, and almost all, I should say, of the prime lots, of the 30 some prime lots, almost all of those are in at the 12-month $4,300 price. So it's not a lot of impact on those prime site people because they're already paying the 12-month price.
Right.
So it's the impact on the 50 or so other standard monthlies that are currently just doing a 2 or 3 month plan at 18 to 2,500.
Well, I guess as a board, we have to decide if we want to look at the amount we're charging and still keep the monthlies, or look at having seasonals on that side of the park at one fee. I guess we have to kind of look at that. Craig, I would like to know what Craig thinks about this because you were at the last meeting, but what's your thoughts on any of this?
Well, I think Dave has a pretty good feel of what the demand is,
Mm-hmm.
I think we should probably kind of go in the direction of what the demand is telling us.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, do I understand correctly that the import of your memo about what we're doing now was not necessarily designed to say you want us to think about doing something different? In general, the only issue I thought we had before us at the meeting was whether or not we wanted to do anything responsive to that letter from the fella who thought we went up a little bit much.
Well, I shared Ron Vance's email with y'all just out of sense of duty. He's one of our best guests, first to arrive, last to leave. He's on a 12-month plan, at that $3,600, $3,700 for a standard site. And, so he's just presenting the opinion that, keep the rate increase modest or marginal. There's a great fear in the monthly community that, we're going to increase their rates and price them out. And that comes up every fall. So that's nothing new. We need to adjust monthly rates. Do we do it sort of as we've always done, paralleling nightly increases, or take a more radical approach? And some of these ideas we're tossing out that says, you got to commit to the full season. It's 3,900 or, 4,000, and prime sites are 5,000. I mean, that's what we're talking about right now. And, Sam's not a part of this discussion. I very much value her opinion and expertise in all this. She's been here longer than I have. Monthlies in particular are her specialty. She's the point person with a lot of these, issues and the waiting list and the, policies. I think we should wait until Sam can be included in the meeting. Perhaps in December, we look at policies. Maybe tonight we just talk about rates. But that's the bottom line, Steve, is we need to adjust monthly rates. Policies, no, eminent need to change, but good to talk about. And, Sam and I talked about this before, and obviously with this pandemic and all the anxiety and unsettledness to the whole national scene right now, we're of the opinion to not rock the boat too severely, to not cause additional anxiety and additional disruption in people's lives by, radical departure from our existing policies. That said, we can, phase in good ideas.
Their comments would lean in the direction of our having done a 3% increase instead of a 5% increase.
True, but demand is never been bigger, and discrepancies between nightlies and monthlies has never been bigger. And so maybe that's not the logic here, or it's a phased in approach to get closer to nightly. If we're expecting 5,000 on these sites, like we're getting from monthlies, or I'm sorry, from nightlies, I don't believe we can do that in the course of one season. That's a 40% increase, and it would be devastating to there's the general attitude. You know, you think back 20 years ago when they had the 20% PUC surcharge, and that was a big, bad mess of PR. Now, granted, we recovered in a year with the occupancy was bad, you know, quick to rebound, and everybody was happy paying the higher rates. And so it's a short-lived emotional effect or, you know, reaction to a rate hike. But 3 seems too less. 25% is way too much.
So for December, you and Sam will bring us whatever recommendations you want to with regard to making adjustments in the rates that reflect some of this discussion?
Steve, I think no, I can't promise that. I'd like to get to that tonight, actually. I don't feel Sam needs to be involved in the rates discussion so much as the policy discussion. But the rates is something you need to decide. I can't do a lot of recommending here and not be caught in the middle as the manager that, you know, administers the rates. The rates are in your court.
The trouble is, of course, is that we're not as well equipped to make judgments about it as you are. You've got far more facts available. That's why I was looking for a staff recommendation. Does the letter from the fella that you sent to us, does that cause you to want to think about reducing the increase in rates from 5 to 3, or are you thinking we should just leave it where it is?
We already passed that part.
I'm sorry, Rita, what was that?
We already passed the 5% in the last meeting for nightlies. We're looking at the monthlies and the seasonals tonight.
Yes, yes.
Oh,
and I don't,
okay.
and I
really
think,
make
you know,
on the monthlies.
Say that again, Steve.
As I understand it, we only made decisions on the nightly rates last month.
Yes.
Correct.
I have a question, Dave. Does that monthly rate include electricity, sewer, water, everything?
you bet. Yep, all inclusive, lawn care, garbage,
A great deal.
no tax.
Yeah, I think a 5% increase would be the minimum increase that we should consider. I based upon what we're providing and the fact that, you know, we have a responsibility to the city also to make sure that we're being good stewards of the park and bringing in as much as we can for the city. And I don't think we would be overcharging people with a 5% increase.
Well, what we're saying is that, you know, if you look at a monthly rate, those people can come for June, July, whatever, July, August, and they're paying what, $8.57 a month, Dave? Compared to how much would we get per night for that spot for a month? And I thought we did the math last time, and it was like more than double this rate.
About 1,200. Yeah, 1,200. It's because of weekly, you know, it's about $290 a week on the standard site. Again, it depends on site.
Mm-hmm.
You know, certainly front row is way different than a standard price because we don't do a weekly discount and we're $10 more a night. So front row will set you back $1,700 a month. So yeah, if you're into that comparison of the view sites at, you know,
yeah, if you're talking $1,700 a month versus $8.57 a month.
yes,
So that's a pretty huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
yes,
I'm saying we need to be closer.
and it's the site driven like discrepancy that we've been trying to.
Right.
For me, it's like I like the ideas of maybe sunsetting the prime sites, take them out of monthly for new, you know, don't make, when a prime site opens right now, give it that front row policy that says it goes to nightly.
Gotcha.
Because you've like instantly doubled your revenue on that site without hurting anyone's feelings because
Yep.
the people left.
Yep.
And we can continue to offer quality monthly sites, just not on the water. You know, we've got the neighborhoods back by the, you know, by the rec hall and bathhouse 3. Those are full hookup sites. You know, it's even really interesting. The 4 sites that are right across from the rec hall there by the playground, sites 147, 148, 149. So on the map, you see how 2 of those are monthly and 2 of those are
Right.
nightly, and
Right.
to me, that is the ideal litmus test of rates, because the 2 monthly sites were collecting about $3,500 per site. The 2 nightly sites were collecting $5,500 per site.
Right, big difference.
And that neighborhood is so it's so standard that it's like, that's where we should focus our monthly sites. 3,500, maybe it's an okay price back there, but it's, 4,500, but it's, when you're on the water with the view, it doesn't seem right.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we're just pretty far off in what we're doing at those monthly sites versus nightly.
It sounds to me, Dave, that you're perilously close to making a recommendation that some of those prime sites, when somebody leaves, we should turn them into nightly sites rather than monthly.
That's a good way to increase revenue, like I say, without displacing current residents.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about all the blue sites, Dave?
Yes.
So we're talking 31 sites.
Yes.
Okay, then we definitely are going to have to look at what we're doing with the list of 280 people waiting on that list. We're going to have to save that for another meeting or something. But if we do that and approve that, we're going to have to figure something different with that list. That's kind of an insane, time-consuming amount of people sitting on that waiting list for even less spots then.
Yes.
Idea.
Or we, kind of transition into that middle neighborhood of the 140s and 160s. We replace when site 19 opens up, that we sell that nightly, and instead we sell 149 as a monthly, if we want to keep a balance of monthly. But if we want to slowly phase out of monthly, which might be a good idea, we don't offer a suitable back lot replacement. We just keep phasing out.
I think that's probably easier on bookkeeping too, but
Dave, do you think people are interested in coming to Grand Marais, or do you think they're interested in coming and living in the campground, which has close proximity to downtown, the restaurants, and all of that within walking distance? Or if the city put up a second rec park out in the industrial park area for summer guests, do you think they would take those?
Oh, that's a good question. So it's certainly like a very prime location here, right on the water. It's just one of a kind prime, and the walk to town and the view is amazing. And so I think that's what is the real charm, and that's what people really love about it here. Whether or not they would be satisfied with a back up the hill park, I think so, yes. I think there's so many people in this world, and RVing is so popular that I think any RV park right now is going to thrive if it's well run, irregardless of the location. But the on the water location, to me, says it's so unique, it's so prime, that the price is kind of people will pay nearly anything for this, as we've proven with nightly rates.
Right.
Have we talked about taking the ball field and putting in spots? Or I know we've talked about, once the city buildings come out, are they, we talked about putting more spots over in that area?
We talked about it. The ball field as on the master plan is, if you look at a master plan from 15 years ago, or 11 years ago, 2009 master plan depicts no ball field and roughly 50 to 60 new sites. And the logic behind those sites was a monthly neighborhood, because it's back there with no view. So that was talked about a lot 10 years ago.
Okay.
The reality of the ball field was it's an important asset. The community really uses it. We wouldn't just do away with it until a suitable replacement was built, and that evaporated with the cost of that.
Don't we have another ball field up by the community center?
The county does. The county does, and we maintain it. And the feasibility of adding another one up there proved to be, $1 million deal. That was saying, oh, well, we better keep the one in the park. And so that's kind of where the ball field's been left. And in a managerial sense, I favor quality over quantity anyway. So I feel like we've already got our hands full trying to manage 300 sites. I don't support 360 sites, just from a staff and infrastructure and density and bathhouses and all of that. I don't feel adding sites is the solution to this. I feel like in mini zones, resizing, so we take 12 small sites and make 10, good sized sites out of it is a better solution, and price them, more because they're decent sized sites.
And then
Let me
Sally's
test the question.
making more another kind of a spin-off type park.
Well, that's never.
No, I mean, didn't
Soccer,
you say that about, did I misunderstand that about the business park or something?
Well, I was just
that's
trying
just
to,
hypothetical.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
it was a hypothetical.
Yeah, but there was, back to Sawtooth Bluffs, there was, part of that master plan was another municipal campground that was like dispersed remote tent camping.
Oh, gotcha.
Dave, do I understand that we have at least two decisions before us today? One is whether to raise the monthly and seasonal rates as opposed to the nightly rates. And the other is what to do, whether or not to adopt the idea of sunsetting some of the lots so that we can change them from monthly or seasonal to nightly. Am I stating where we are?
That's right. That's certainly what we've been talking about, Steve. There's no pressure. I don't feel we need to decide anything tonight, actually, because we've decided nightly rates. That's what we're taking reservations on now, and monthlies don't need to really know until January. That's the deposit process for monthlies currently. Like, typically we decide monthly rates by December. I send out a letter after the December meeting that explains the rate adjustment, explains any changes in policy, and invites them to make their deposit in January. So we still have the December meeting to determine monthly rates and monthly policies.
Okay. So this is just discussion and information.
Yes, but if there's strong feelings on rates, you can certainly make those known. And
Does anyone care to make a motion about the rate increase for 2021 for seasonal residents?
I was getting David's suggestion was we should wait until December to do that. Is that what I'm hearing?
you could, but you needn't, especially rates. Policies, I would like to wait. I think we need Sam. I think, we need more. If you need more information on how it currently works or what you'd like to see done differently, I think we should take this next month and, hash that out. But, rates, you could make that decision tonight. But again, maybe some policy decisions are going to be folded into those pricing. If we say you have to do the full season, for example, there's no more 2-month deals. That's a big deal. That's a big decision. And,
Sorry.
that's all right. That's all right. But yeah, so there's no pressure tonight to make any decisions. But if you feel that you want to decide about rates, go for it. Policies, let's write them down, get some feedback, keep talking about, certainly the waiting list process and the site selection, which sites are monthly. Let's not decide that tonight.
Does anyone want to entertain a motion?
I heard you earlier suggesting, Sally, you really would be excited about having a motion for a 5% increase for the monthlies and the seasonals. Did I infer that correctly?
I personally would be in favor of that, yes.
Well, let's test that question out. I'll make that motion that we increase the seasonals and the monthlies by 5%.
Is there a second to that motion? Going. I will second that motion. We'll have a roll call vote.
Good notion.
Pardon? Craig?
I didn't hear what Steve had
The
said.
motion was to increase the rates by 5% for the seasonal camping
Okay.
residents.
And you have a second?
Yes, we have. I seconded it.
Okay.
So what would be your vote?
I would say yay. Yes.
Okay, Rita,
No.
Steve,
Yes,
Sally, yes.
So we're just going to keep the monthlies at the rate that they're at by a 5% increase.
Well,
We're not going to bring them closer to the rate that we would get. So instead of 1,700 a month on a nightly, we're going to still keep it at 857 plus 5%. So we're not going to bring those prices closer up to where we would be getting for a nightly.
I
That's my
think if we're going to do a complete overhaul of the system, we do that in the off season, not as close to this time where we need to publish rates. I think over the next 6 months, we have continued discussions on it. But I think for now, we go with that 5% increase, or it even could be higher, actually. But I think we should suss it out and come up with a plan for maybe the next 3 to 5 years for our rate changes or our changes that we're going to be making to the park. I think even a subcommittee would be worth considering.
I was under the impression that my motion was to increase both the monthlies and the seasonals by 5%. Was that what we voted on?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, we already,
Yes.
yes.
And they are one and the same. You know, there's 5% on the 757, just like 5% on the 12-month plan.
But this
Exactly.
doesn't mean that we still couldn't make some changes by next month in terms of how long, what you pay if you're here for just 3 months. We could make an adjustment to some of those.
Well, we just passed that. We're increasing those monthlies by 5%. So we'd have to totally disregard this vote then. If
Well-
we decide to change that.
Dave, would you feel that you and Sam would like to have some time to talk about all of this before we make a final decision?
You know, I'm all right with the 5% across the board as just a starting point, and like an expectation has been set now. But the kind of the strategic adjustments that we can, you know, Sam and I and you know, staff or you all are, you know, invited into is for December, and policy changes that kind of echo where we've gone in terms of new people off the list can't do just a 2-month deal, you know, are going to reinforce some of these, you know, revenue gains, particularly if we sunset prime sites from monthly rates. That, as I've said, is the biggest, most effective way to increase revenue on a prime site without really hurting feelings, because the site is sitting empty for, you know, going into next season, rather than placing it on the list and settling for 4,700. Right, we just do nightly on that site. We see how it performs. Maybe it gets the same $5,000, and you know, we sort of realize that this is all for nothing because we're not that popular. We're not that, you know, it's pretty quiet here in May and October. And the Sam's logic is, you know, as we add more and more overnight sites, it's, you know, dilutes that, and the average is going to go down. And that it's kind of more of a balance of site count that are driving these averages, because we just don't have enough nightly sites in the full hookup land. You know, the ones we do have are being occupied more and more and more. But as we add to that fleet, if we put monthlies into nightlies, it brings down those averages maybe, because there's, you know, more to divide by across the 6-month season. Difficult to tell, but I think there's certain strategic policy moves that we can make next month or beyond that are going to increase revenue without straight rate hikes, right?
And it will be a pretty gradual increase as those lots are sunsetted.
Yeah.
So you can do some evaluative work then to compare how many nights this was rented at that higher rate, and did we come out ahead, or would it have been better to rent it as a monthly?
Right. And there can be, you know, one thing that struck me was this 12-month plan is less than paying 5.5 months of straight rates. right? So it's like a discount plus free storage.
Yeah.
And so maybe we get rid of the 12-month plan and we say, you know, or we make the 12-month plan more.
Yeah.
You know, we can still make, you know, moves like that.
Right.
But if we
haven't
make
really talked about
and
storage.
more, and we leave the monthly, I mean, what a great deal to come for July and August and pay $1,500 for the 2 prime months of the summer.
Right, but nobody new gets that deal.
But that's why I'm saying we need to look at, instead of raising everybody 5% across the board, we need to look at those rates on the monthly ones. If we're going to keep them there as monthlies, they should be paying a little more comparable to what like the 12-month people are paying.
Yep.
Even if you you know, you need to make it fair on the people that are staying there for 12 months and what they pay. They're getting a 5% increase, but those monthlies still get their prime spots. That's not much for them, a 5% increase, because we're not even close to what we get for nightly, or divided 12 or 6 for the people who are paying 12-month seasonal rates. I mean, we're kind of doing service to those people.
I absolutely get it, Rita. And there's so few that are just doing a 2-month deal.
Right.
That, you know, it's kind of a chicken and egg thing. And I think, yeah, do we keep letting them do that deal? Maybe not. You know, maybe we, you know, make the 2-month rate $1,200 a month or something.
If we go from the system we have now to just seasonals or nightlies, isn't that going to increase our staff costs? We're going to have much more turnover.
I don't see staff costs as a big equation here, Steve.
You think people will just pay the full nightly rate for 2 months and do it happily?
Yeah, I can't say. There's so few doing it. It's such prime season that they're doing it July and August that, yeah, I think there's a lot of flexibility in that 2-month rate.
Okay.
I would say if I was going to do a motion, I would do one that we, you know, if we're going to increase by 5%, I understand that, but we need to look at the rate for the monthlies, because 5% is still not even close to half of
And
what
that's a discussion we should have next month. You know, that whatever we did in that regard would supersede the 5%.
Gotcha.
In the information that you send out next month, Dave, can you kind of do some explanation of some of there's so many details that if you haven't worked at the park, you don't really have a full grasp of it, but just some information about those 2-monthers and
Sure.
How many we have and what they're presently paying, and so we can do some comparisons.
Yes. Yeah. That was sort of my intent for this meeting, even where I could have everything sort of spelled out. How many 12-monthers, how many 3-monthers, how many 2-monthers. I can have those numbers for you for December. And you'll see that I just know anecdotally, like I had said earlier, like we've got about 20 or so standard 12-month people. We've got most of the standard sites are 3-month and they leave, or 3-month and they store. There's just a handful of 2-monthers. And then all the prime sites are on the 12-month plan.
So if we have a 3-month plan, they pay the 3-month rate, which is even cheaper, and then they just pay $74 to keep their unit there for the rest of the month. So that's where you say we're losing the money in like May and
That's right. That's a bargain.
September
And that's where, and so there's an easy, quick policy, or not quick, but an easy policy that says if you store on site, it's 12-month plan. It's 38 or 39.
that makes sense.
And that's a big, you know, it used to be 28 because of the storage of the other 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
Well, our seasons have certainly gotten longer here when we have visitors and when we can rent those sites out. So if we weren't storing their trailer there, we could rent it out to someone else and bring a lot more money. So certainly that's a no-brainer for us.
Yeah, no, I can certainly get things broken out for December, who's doing what that's, you know, yielding, and then some suggestions, recommendations for, you know, moving forward with this to just, you know, basically level the playing field is, I think, what we're after. I really want to get rid of all these little individual deals.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Getting too complicated.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
You'll bring us some ideas about things we might do and some numbers that would help us analyze it.
You bet.
Great.
Is there Anything else anyone wants to say on that topic before we?
Well, let me just say this, Sally. I'll take this 5% across the board motion as just a preliminary expectations.
It's what we do unless we change our minds.
Yes.
Well, I think it's really unclear what the 5% all includes. So I think, that's sort of an on hold motion that passed, but it isn't completely finished. It's an unfinished project right there.
Yeah.
Is there any new business that we need to discuss before we adjourn?
I can write down the park report that I sent earlier today.
Mhm. Congratulations to Sam.
I know I saved the best news for last.
Yes, that was great news.
Yeah, but I'll start at the top there. We finally wrapped up the season. October was just as strong as we expected, despite the freezing temperatures of MEA weekend. That was, October, like June, was a big month to gain in because of typically a quieter time. So this 40% increase in revenue is impressive, but not surprising because, typically October is slower. But this really has set us up for success on the entire season now, where we looked at a budget expectation of just over $1.3 million was expected from City Council for the general fund. And I believe we'll make that. We're at 1.3. We've got some outstanding invoices coming in over the next couple months to the tune of close to $20,000. These are monthlies and seasonals that haven't paid yet, or they're paying on a, $600 a month plan. And then the other nuance this season, we're taking deposits already. We're going to make some money this month on deposits. Certainly a lot more money in December on deposits. Just looking ahead to looking back, January, we made $75,000 in deposits. So if we even get a fraction of that in December, we're going to have met our budget expectation, which is impressive, being closed about 20% of the season we were closed. And so very interesting that the expenses have tracked this 18% down is about the amount of time we lost this season. There's interesting numbers here. And it's the same as the savings on seasonal staff, 18% less money spent this year on seasonal staff. So expenses have been down, significantly down. We're going to come well under budget, which is going to help out the bottom line, and the city taxes and all that will not be impacted or affected by this shortened season.
If we end up with the same income as last year and a reduction of expenses by 18%, there'll be more to put in the capital fund or to fund some of Paul's ideas of the golf course?
Yeah, no, we have our capital fund money allocated. We'll certainly pay big bucks into our own fund from our own budgeted expense columns, but the overperformance or the underspending, as it will be this year, will simply just pad the general fund and be available to city council for city council priorities is generally how our overachievements or underspending are dealt with. So it'll just go to the general fund, but it'll certainly help us when it comes to city council priorities. And moving forward, we can continue to budget strongly for the park and our own capital projects. We've got very healthy fund balance there, approaching $1 million. Some other interesting numbers from the season, utilities were down about $6,000. That's, I think, due to being closed in May. Some of these seasonals that do come early May were not here this year. That's a cold time. They run a lot of electric heat. I saw a lot of the utility savings were in May and June because of not being open. And then the maintenance, in particular, maintenance supplies, these are like our project supply budget was way down. 44%. It's only a $5,000 reduction, but that was all the lost time in the spring and the spring's, projects being on hold and that sort of business. We just didn't get to some of these, fix-its and buying things that we usually do. The other big savings came from no youth sports. Community ed programming, was canceled. Youth baseball, even though it's a county program, it's city park maintained and budgeted there for ball field maintenance. And we definitely saved on the staff time that was necessary for keeping the ball fields in order. And so it kind of made me look back and think, boy, we were busier than ever, and yet we were short probably 4 staffers. But because we didn't have ball fields and because we didn't open in May and we didn't do all these special projects and we didn't support all the special events, we pulled it off. And I'm wondering future forward, like, let's stay closed in May every year. It's like just being crazy about that. But a very interesting season that, we were able to capitalize and meet our budgets.
The city council should be really happy with you and us, because the way I figure it, 82% of 1,000,003 is about 1,060,000, which is to say the city's going to have an extra 250 or 300,000 bucks to work with.
Yeah, we do that every year, Steve. So yeah, nice work to all. And obviously end of year numbers will get you in December as well, or possibly January. January is usually the wrap on the whole season, the whole look back. So we also got good news from the testers down at the old PUC shop. The garages and the dog pound was tested for asbestos a couple weeks ago. The results came in this week. Very minimal trace amounts of asbestos in the caulk around the windows. So that'll be something that'll be easily managed during the demolition process. Those pieces go into a separate construction dumpster for remediation. But with the report in hand, we are seeking firm prices for the demolition of the garages, which to me is one of those, kind of legacy projects. You look back on the comp plan from the 80s and they wanted those garages gone. So that could very well come to be in this next month or so. I think we should have a big party once that's happening with social distance. But yeah, a big celebration once those garages are down. Haven't heard anything from the DNR in the past month, but we talked about them last month. It's still full steam ahead on the boat launch plans. The expectation was that the breakwater plan portion of the project would be bid in December, so that, that'll be the next waypoint or timeline test of this project, and whether or not it stays on time is if the DNR can get that breakwater bid in December. Contractors could hopefully mobilize over the winter and start to move in some of the heavy rocks. And then the reservations for May are now underway. We opened up the online booking machine on Sunday, November 1st. We loved it. It worked. It didn't crash. There was only 5 reservations that were taken on Sunday the 1st. But of the 5, I think 3 of them called us on Monday because they didn't know what they were doing. And it was, they booked too many sites. And it's strange how the online booking is maybe causing more work because they're getting dates wrong, they're getting sites wrong. It's just what we experienced all season, really, where people book online, they don't have that personal touch. They're not being told you're leaving on Thursday the 3rd. They sort of been confused on the dates, but we'll continue to work that system. Obviously, next month, December 1st, opens up June dates. Late June through early July will be available. So 4th of July, we'll start booking on December 1st. And that's where we'll really test our bandwidth and our capacity to handle, hundreds of reservations in a day. We are considering moving our Astra Campground Manager software into the cloud as a real surefire fix for bandwidth and redundancy and security and everything about our Campground Manager software. We currently own that in-house. We bought that from the developers 2 years ago to the tune of about $7,000. We've already paid that off, or paid that back in terms of what we would have cost to lease as a software as a service in the cloud. This same program will be close to $300 to $400 per month. So we're looking at, $3,600 to $4,800 per year in software cloud service. But it might be worth it in this new modern age. We would be able to access our database from our phones at home. If there was an emergency in the middle of the night, we could tie the law enforcement center into our system. They could look for folks remotely. There's a lot of benefits to being in the cloud. And so Sam and I are continuing to look into that. And based on our performance online booking in December, I feel like that'll be the swing there. If things work in December with our in-house system, we'll probably stick with it. But if it bogs down and glitches, we don't want that in January, and we would move quickly to the cloud in the month of December. We can talk more about that at the December meeting. And then, yeah, the great news for last, Sam's awarded the Heart of Hospitality Award. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to see the videos. They're just very well done. Visit Cook County, very outstanding organization recognizing tourism and hospitality, and no one deserved this more than Sam. And I was the nominator, and just so happy for her.
Where can you watch the videos, Dave?
Well, I tried to embed the link in the Parks report. Like, you might be able to click on that on the Heart of Hospitality Awards link.
Okay.
Has that worked for anyone?
I didn't have time to try it, but it did have the link. It looked like an activated link that I could go back when I had the time to do it before the meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, it should be there in your Parks report, or it's on the Visit Cook County site. We're trying to get it on our Facebook page, but it turns out so we're working on a Facebook deal where, because of Facebook and business Facebook, Sam's personal account had been hosting our business site, and we need to get out of that. And I believe she's already canceled her personal account, and so I no longer have access to our business site. But this is a fun off-season project to get a real business Facebook account through the city, so we can share all these great moments.
Great. She is deserving. Thanks for nominating her.
No doubt.
Do we have any news about prospective 5th Park Board members?
Maybe. I've been really putting the word out every meeting I'm in. I'm passing it around in the Zoom room, and just this morning I met with the Creative Economic Collaborative. Now, this is the group that's working on the Highway 61 initiatives outside of in the right-of-way, outside of the traffic lanes. Same group that's involved with the community connection and the landing. And so that's, Steve, a quick answer: no, I haven't gotten any official news of applicants or nominations, but it's been widely distributed throughout the community that we're seeking an appointment. And even so much so, at a meeting this morning when I was talking with the CEC, I said, it'd be best if either someone from the Park Board was on the CEC or someone from the CEC was on the Park Board. And there was a gal on the screen that was expressing interest in that. So, but yeah, that's a good reminder to update us on the CEC projects. The landing, like we've been talking about, is a park capital project, but we haven't seen it for long enough that we're going to expect an update and some concept plans, maybe some pricing from the CEC over the next few months. They're intending to appear before City Council and Park Board if necessary, just to update everyone on their plans and their doings and the timeline for budgets. But like we talked about last month, the landing is not going to happen next year. And so we'll have ample time to plan and budget for that.
I asked the question in part because I belong to the Marais Sell and Swap, which has like 1,500 members on Facebook. And if it was at all useful to advertise the vacancy on that site, I would do it in a moment.
Maybe the community page would be a better place for it.
Yeah.
Community pages now, so.
Yeah, I don't do social media, so I wouldn't recommend it. I think Patrick downtown is doing a pretty good job through official channels of communicating the need for board openings. I know I was in a staff meeting earlier this week that it was projected come January, when the appointments are up on multiple boards, that they're going to need 12 people from the community to serve throughout the boards of the City Council. So there's going to be a ramped up effort of recruitment and advertising for board openings in the next couple months.
Okay, so if we don't have it by January, then we might want to think more about advertising it more broadly.
Patrick?
I was going to say, that said, we definitely encourage you as Park Board members to reach out to folks, one-on-one, because that's usually the best way. And staff are kind of, it's best for us not to approach individuals. So anything you can do is greatly appreciated.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'll have the news in December, but a few terms might be up in our own group now. I'll have to look at who's served when, but there might be some openings in January.
Okay, is there anything else before we adjourn? Thank you, everybody. Pardon?
Move we adjourn.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any objections? All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you all.
All remote.